What's going on, fellas? Steeler here, back again with a much requested video, if I do say so my goddamn self, as an Xbox channel. We're all very excited for Scorpio. The game's going to look phenomenal, and a lot of people have been asking me to test 6 teraflops of compute performance with my PC, and it's actually the sole reason I actually got an RX 480 at 5.93 teraflops. This thing is clocked at. This is basically the closest we're going to get to proof that Scorpio can do native 4K, and I'm not just talking low settings, medium settings, not even high settings. I'm talking ultra settings, baby. So basically, guys, if you want to know about my rig, what's in it, and the whole CPU discussion, because that is going to be an issue or a factor with Scorpio, we don't know what CPU's in it, stay tuned to the end of the video, because I'm going to cover all of that. Most likely, if you got a comment about anything regarding performance or comparing consoles to PC, I've got it covered at the end of the video, so please watch the whole thing. It'll definitely help both of us. And for the rest of us, guys, I've got a few games I'm going to test here, I think 4 or 5, and this is just the first batch, right? I'm more than willing to test more, and definitely if you see any hiccups, the visuals, the frame rate hiccups, all that's coming from the programmer I'm using to render this video. It's garbage. So the games are running native 4K, they're running great frame rates on my end. Keep that in mind. So let's get into this. Alright, fellas, on to the benchmark, starting with an oldie but a goodie, and I do have to apologize, guys. All of that information that you're probably going to want to see for some of these games that do not have built-in benchmarks is going to be at the top left, and it's going to be extremely hard to see because it's so small, and the program I'm using to render this video is garbage, so the quality drops, resolution, it hitches frames. It's not the game. The game on my end is running native 4K ultra settings, and you're not going to see that. It's not going to be indicative of the quality you're going to see on Scorpio or any kind of comparable PC GPU. So basically what you have here is StarCraft 2, a great looking game. It's a bit older, but some of those who have seen me playing this on the Xbox app have asked me to kind of give the numbers on this. I'm running a native 4K ultra settings, and I'm also getting a locked 60 under VSync, meaning the game will not go higher than 60 because I have VSync enabled for a very smooth experience. If I were to disable VSync, it's up around 90 FPS, and once again, the game looks pretty damn well off for a game that's this old, right? So this is just kind of one example of what you can get with under 6 teraflops at 5.93 T-flops. That's what my GPU's at 1288 core clock. It is an RX 480. And just so you guys know, this is Polaris architecture. So most likely there is a possibility that Scorpio is running Vega. And why does that matter? Why would a Vega APU in Scorpio be a benefit? Well, basically, they've already confirmed a few things, and probably the most important to me is the fact that Vega is twice as efficient as Polaris and producing polygons. So with the same clock cycle, Vega can produce double the amount of polygons with basically the same amount of processing. And that's important because that means a more efficient 6 teraflops. So, to me, I really don't think the visuals are going to be lower than this. If anything, they might be a little higher. Depending on the CPU. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I had that discussion at the end, but in terms of the resolution and most of these graphical effects, they're going to be being pushed out by the GPU, and that's really, Scorpio's got a ridiculously powerful GPU for a console, so you don't really have to worry about the resolution. All this stuff's going to be obtainable. All these graphics effects are going to be obtainable and ideal. The only thing being, particle effects can affect the CPU. The amount of AI on screen can affect the CPU. And as I just mentioned, we're going to cover that at the end of the video. So as you see here, Arkham Knight running native 4K, no motion blur, doesn't really affect performance, it's just a preference. No film grain, doesn't affect performance, just a preference. I'm actually running NVIDIA GameWorks Enhanced Rain, and another feature which is not optimized for AMD. And as you're going to see, the numbers are still pretty damn good at a native 4K Ultra. No anti-aliasing on 4K titles because it is not necessary. Keep in mind, I'm playing on a 70-inch Samsung 4K TV, and even when I get in close, it's still pretty damn hard to spot the jaggies, especially in gameplay. Pretty much impossible for me. So, keep in mind, console gamers are going to be several feet back from their TV, even PC guys on the monitors up close. Most of them don't use anti-aliasing. That's just kind of a fact. So if you do, you're probably rocking something like a 1080 or something like that. More power to you, right? But for a console, it's going to be something the developers disable. No point in wasting overhead on anti-aliasing. And, as I said, this is going to be the 4K Arkham Knight benchmark. This game was notoriously hard to run. As you saw in the options menu, I was using over 4 gigabytes of VRAM for this game. The textures alone, just to raise them from low to medium, is, if you got a 2 gigabyte card, you can't even run this game above low settings on the texture side. I mean, that's why VRAM is important. It's becoming more and more important as we go along. So it's a good thing that Scorpio is rocking 12 gigabytes of GDDR5 for that 320 gigabytes of memory bandwidth. I think they know what they're doing with this stuff, guys. I think they are over-engineering this, and they want to build a console that's going to be a great base model when they eventually stop supporting the original Xbox One. And it will happen. 5-6 years from now, they may stop supporting the Xbox One S, the fat Xbox One, and the Scorpio will be the new base model, and you'll have a Scorpio 2 in the place of the regular Scorpio. You get what I'm saying here? So it's going to keep moving forward. And as you see here at native 4K, you're going to get 49 as your high, and this is just on my PC GPU. You're going to get 35 as your average. I could have even activated anti-aliasing and still maintained a 30 average pretty easily there. And of course that 20 is pretty damn low. A lot of these PC benchmarks, there'll be some kind of hitching, and that'll actually be in-game, generally at the beginning of the benchmark, and that'll actually cause that low score of, a 20 in Arkham Knight's case. And now we're going to do 1440p testing, just skipping through it here. I'm not going to make you watch the whole thing, just an example of how the game would actually run at a 60 FPS target. And as you see here, guys, the results are pretty damn good. Over 100 FPS doing 1440p ultra settings on Arkham Knight. I have to stress, it was a notoriously hard game to run at launch. It's gotten a bit better, but it's still not the game people go to get ridiculously high frame rates and things like that. And like I said, over 100 FPS, over 70 FPS average on Arkham Knight at 1440p. And we're moving on to Mad Max, a very just great game, highly underrated game. The Batman combat obviously makes its way into this title as well. And, they change it up. You got power attacks, you blowing people away with shotguns. It's a damn good game. If you haven't tried it, give it a whack. But really, as you saw there in the options menu, and feel free to go back and pause, everything at Ultra. And this is a 4K benchmark, and like I said, there is no synthetic benchmark. So we've kind of got to go into gameplay and do it ourselves. And as you see, 4K Ultra, everything enabled except for, of course, things like motion blur, all that crap. Over 30 frames, well over 30 frames per second right here. This game is just, it's a really good game, and this is indicative of what you could see on Scorpio. Of course, everything's not like for like, and like I said, the discussion we'll have at the end of the video will kind of hopefully remedy a lot of the comments that we'll get. But, on the GPU side of things, you can expect this kind of performance, you can expect this kind of resolution, you can expect these kind of textures or higher, you can expect this kind of ambient occlusion, you can expect this next generation shit, which is awesome. And now we're doing our 1440p 60 FPS testing, because obviously I throw this in here because a lot of gamers, they want 60 FPS ultra over everything and then scale up the resolution. I don't know how many times I've heard that, and of course I preach that here on the channel. That is what I want to see from Scorpio, and that is what I go for when I'm gaming on my PC. The little amount of gaming I do on my PC, that's what I go for. I'm a console dude. I want to see this make its way to Scorpio. And, as you see, over 80 frames per second at 1440p, same exact ultra settings as we were just running at 4K. Like I said, over 80 FPS. They could definitely even add some bells and whistles here to really bring the FPS down to 60 and make the game look even better. They got some headroom. Really, man, the game does look great around the 60 FPS. That's the coolest thing about games like The Witcher, Fallout, Skyrim, Mad Max, Batman Arkham Knight, seeing these games run at 60 FPS is the most next generation type shit, in conjunction with a lot of these features you get on the PC versions. It's not resolution, and I really hope the team at Microsoft understand that gamers want to see better graphics, not just better resolution. And really, we're going to move on to the Shadow of Mordor test, and I chose this game because Shadow of War was just announced to support Xbox Scorpio at 6 teraflops. It was just announced to support Xbox Play Anywhere, and obviously the first one was great. It blew a lot of people away. It was a really good game, really unexpected, nailed the Arkham combat, and as you see here, this is the 4K benchmark. Everything at Ultra, of course, with things like anti-aliasing, all that turned off, not necessary, especially for console gamers, as I've explained. I've even got tessellation, ambient occlusion, all this stuff, all the bells and whistles, all on. So it's not just Ultra, it's Ultra plus, things like tessellation, which is great. And we're actually going to run the benchmark, and as you're going to see, the results are pretty good. People were kind of hyped that Shadow of War may be a native 4K on Scorpio, and I've got to say, and as you're about to see, I think that's more than plausible. Taking away the fact that Scorpio is a closed box, taking away the fact that the developers may or may not have optimized this engine to run even better than it does, I think that it's going to be possible with 6 teraflops. And that's not even, throwing into consideration that it may be Vega or any of that, or, like I said, that it's even in a closed box. I still think that it's going to be possible. We're getting well over 30 FPS at points at 4K, all the bells and whistles turned on with Shadow of Mordor. And I've got to stress once again, these benchmarks are to really mix it up, very high detail in this area with explosions going on. As you see at 4K, we average well above 30 FPS, and hey, definitely with the highs up, I do believe, into the 50s, which is good. That's good to see, because I think they can definitely nail a 4K 30 Ultra on Shadow of War. But hopefully they do what I'm about to do and go for a 60 FPS instead. It's a whole different game when you do this. So here's the deal. With Shadow of Mordor, they don't actually have a 1440p option, or at least I wasn't allotted that option. Did not give me the option for 1440p. There's a resolution that's kind of close, but it's higher than 1440p, meaning that if it were 1440p, I would probably gain about 10 frames per second, 8 to 10 frames per second, I'm calculating. So basically, we have to run at a slightly higher resolution because it's the closest thing to 1440p, and we still average an acceptable frame rate. It's not ideal, but keep in mind, we're kind of brute forcing the game on the PC side here. So I think if developers, even if they wanted to run it above 1440p, they could add ultra settings and still get a 60 FPS. But as you're going to see here, with this resolution that's higher than 1440p, the result we get isn't entirely disappointing either, by any means, especially considering that it's not been targeted hardware, it's not in a console platform. So really, as we go down in here again, we notice the same shit as before. That's what these benchmarks are designed to replicate. Very taxing things to the CPU and the GPU, and explosions, as I've stated before. We'll just let it kind of play out. The game looks good, man. I gotta say, 60 FPS sets these games off. It sets them apart. That is the coolest thing about PC gaming, in my opinion. 60 FPS at will. It's mind blowing. And of course, we are all the way up in the 80s on this one. But, of course, the average is around 55, and the average is kind of what you want to pay attention to. And this is above 1440p, so I see them easily doing 1440 Ultra. And really, guys, it just is what it is. I do believe that Shadow of War can probably do 1440 60 Ultra, no problem. I really do. That was above 1440p, and like I said, probably around an 8 FPS deficit. I think they can hit that with Shadow of War. But anyways, on to the meat and potatoes of the discussion. Is this the end-all be-all? No. Am I right? Who knows? I've been wrong. I will be wrong again. But I do believe this is the closest you're going to see from what you can expect from Project Scorpio. I do. And it's going to be a very capable console, more capable than any other console in history in every single way by quite a bit. I mean, trust me, it's not even close to as fast as a GTX 1080. No one's saying that. But it does have the same memory bandwidth. They are really trying to future-proof this. They're trying to think about how to get information from point A to point B very quickly so they don't have to clog up the pipeline, you know. Now, when it comes to the CPU, yes, I'm running a decent CPU. I'm running an i7-3770. It's about 5 years old, right? It's ancient. But, you know, keep in mind that anything above 30 FPS is really where the CPU is going to come in, right? 30 FPS on lower power CPUs, it's not really all that hard to do. So all this resolution you're seeing, the 4K in Arkham Knight, Mad Max, Shadow of Mordor, all this resolution, these textures, the lighting, all these particle systems may affect the CPU, but, you know, to be honest, I really don't think they're going to be sticking with this Jaguar. I really don't. I think at the worst case scenario is going to be a Puma using Ryzen technology. It's going to be one of the latest Pumas or maybe some kind of different iteration. They may call it something completely different. Keep in mind, there is a reason it's all called semi-custom. It's all kind of custom-tuned. And Phil Spencer was kind of quoted on Twitter saying, it's all about balance. And my idea of a balanced rig is no bottlenecks. That's without taking into account that more and more engines are being optimized to really hit their 60 FPS targets over everything. There's a reason PlayStation 4 Pro, it's damn near locked at 60 FPS on Battlefield 1 in a lot of areas, right? Of course, it's going to drop, especially when alpha effects are on screen, explosions, particles. But really, more and more engines are being really optimized to get to that 60 FPS target. And I think that's going to be a continuing trend. It's going to be up to developers to hit 60 FPS targets on lower power CPUs anyway. That's without taking into account CPU interpolation, which was mentioned in the white papers, which, trust me, I've seen the papers. Whether or not you believe the guy in Xbox Nation, he does have the papers. They are legitimate, quote for quote, and it is what it is, guys. I mean, should you be worried? No. Apparently, CPU interpolation allows them to render at 30 Hz on the CPU side and 60 on the GPU, meaning laws of the past no longer dictate how things work in the future. And I like that. I like breaking rules. So if you can or if you can't tell, that's a different story. We will have to see. Will they be using Ryzen? Hopefully. I want it to be a 20-core monster. I'm a console guy, right? But obviously, I try to learn about this stuff and bring my perspective to the channel. I really appreciate those that support the channel. But ultimately, guys, it really doesn't matter. Vega, Polaris, Puma, Ryzen. To be honest, as I've said several times, you're going to be impressed. If you are solely a console guy, you do not game on PC, you are going to be blown the fuck away. This is going to be the first time ever you are going to see ultra presets on a console game. The gap between PC gaming and console gaming after Scorpio release is going to be smaller than ever. It is. You know, and keep in mind, I game on both. I do prefer console, but this is just the facts. So, enjoy it. Get ready for it. Look forward to it. Don't listen to the bullshit. It's plenty capable. As I've said before, the resolution, these graphics effects, they're being pumped out by the GPU. Whether or not they've got the CPU to support 60 draw calls per second and how they go about that is to be seen. Hopefully they are smart enough to actually enable 60 FPS at will. Hopefully they know that's what the hardcore guys want. And really, once again, thanks for all the support. The more support this video gets, likes, shares, all that stuff, the more of these I do. And be sure to let me know what other tests you might want to see, what information you might want to know. And of course, if you're into this kind of shit, go ahead and subscribe for new information, videos, all about Xbox, Scorpio, comparisons, etc. But anyways, I'm Dealer. Like, comment, share, subscribe for new shit. I'm out.